What is the difference between a sociopath, a psychopath, and a narcissist? Here to answer this intense question is Dr. Ramani. Help us out here.
Well, it's, again, there's a lot of overlap, but the fact is a lot of people are using these terms interchangeably.
And should they be?
Sociopath, they psychopath. No, they shouldn't. They're
Okay.
different things, okay? One rule of thumb to remember right off the bat. Every psychopath is narcissistic, but not every narcissist is psychopathic. Make sense? There's your key difference. A narcissist is somebody who lacks empathy, is grandiose, is entitled, is constantly seeking validation, is arrogant. It's a disorder of self-esteem, and they have trouble regulating their self-esteem. But when a narcissist does a bad thing, they feel a fair amount of guilt and shame. More shame than guilt, frankly, because they're concerned about how other people view them. Shame is a public emotion. So they don't like being viewed negatively in the public eye or by other people. That's where the shame comes from. But they'll feel a little bad. Like if they cheat on their wife, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Psychopath's a different animal. They're all of those things except no guilt, no shame. Wow. They don't feel remorse when they do something bad.
Wow.
So they're great serial killers. Hired assassins, people who are going to go in and literally sort of gut a business. These are your guys. They're like, I don't care who gets hurt. They'd say that and they'd mean it. Okay, where a narcissist is like, I hope no one gets hurt. Okay? The difference between the psychopath and the sociopath is the one where most people get confused, because the sociopath is a lot like the psychopath. They do bad things and they don't care. Okay? Here's the key difference. A psychopath is born and a sociopath is made. Okay, that's the key. So a psychopath, in fact, we know in the research on psychopathy, which has also been called antisocial personality disorder in our diagnostic manual, these are people who are actually believed to have slightly different autonomic nervous systems. Our autonomic nervous system is actually that part that holds our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight and flight system. So when our autonomic nervous system for a normal person gets charged up, which it would if we broke a rule, if we did something embarrassing or rude, if we ran through a red light, our heart starts racing. We sweat, our pupils get wide, we look around because we're afraid of the consequence. A psychopath doesn't have that same kind of arousal. That's why they're able to lie on lie detector tests. That's how they get away with it. They don't have that same kind of arousal. So where you or I may go on a roller coaster, feel that sense of excitement, we need to get that arousal in a good way. We don't like feeling it when we do something wrong. They don't feel it.
So do they get stressed?
No, not in the same way.
So if they're driving, because if I'm driving and I see police sirens coming behind me, I mean, it is a full-on, my gosh, I can't believe I'm going to get pulled over. But a psychopath would see that and go, oh, I'm going to get pulled over.
Well, this could be. They could have a dead body in the trunk and they wouldn't change.
And so they pull over, they get the ticket, and they don't care.
No, they don't care.
And they pay the ticket?
And maybe not. They'll even probably get an attorney to get him off or say, yeah, my understanding of your state laws is you can't really be doing this. And they'll be cool as can be.
And this is a difference in their
They're actually
their
how
makeup.
their nervous systems are wired and their brains are. There's actually been interesting research done with PET scans where you can see brain function. And what
Not just to clarification, not PET like dogs and cats, PET scans.
Positron emission tomography scans of the brain, which show brain functioning, if you will. And what they see is that the section of the brain that serves empathy, that doesn't naturally light up in them. And you can actually teach them to be empathic for a minute, but it doesn't last. A lot of psychopaths who commit violent crimes end up in jail, and the ones who commit more like white-collar crimes, I guess they end up as multi-billionaires because they're willing to do really, really rough stuff in their business and get through like a cartel leader or something like that, call for the killings of other people. Now, their interesting counterpart are the sociopaths. Psychopaths born. They tend to, their belief is that they may very well have, this might be genetic. In fact, psychopaths often have fathers who have lots of antisocial tendencies. Now, how much of it is learned, how much of it is genetic, it's a little bit harder to suss out. But we do see that there is that difference in your true psychopath. They also tend to have really glib, shallow charm. They tend to be really intelligent. That's why they get away with stuff. If they were
so they've learned behavior to assimilate into society.
Oh yeah.
But it's all a facade.
It's all a facade. They're so charming.
So if they're born this way, would a 3-year-old then not get stressed out if it got scared? So that's incredible.
So what we see when we diagnose antisocial personality disorder, which is sort of our diagnostic equivalent to being a psychopath, in order to get that diagnosis, you have to have shown a pattern prior to the age of 15 of things like truancy, violence towards other kids, stealing, skipping school.
And not felt bad about it.
Setting fires. They just do it. They don't care. And that before the age of 15. So it's a long-standing pattern. That's what makes us call them a psychopath or having antisocial personality. Now, this is different than sociopathy.
Yes, okay.
Sociopathy, they look a lot like the psychopaths. The difference is they were made. So some examples here. The kid who grows up in a really, 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 really rough neighborhood and learns criminality to get by, or learns to be a bully, or gets involved with sort of like the wrong kids and uses a lot of muscle because that's survivalism, but it's not necessarily always comfortable for them. They just learn it. It's the person who grows up with a father who teaches them the business and teaches them how to break the rules. Would they start sweating and have their heart race if they got pulled over? They might. They may not feel so good about it. They'll be a little bit more uncomfortable with it, but in time they learn it. And it's almost like they get trained in not being as aroused by it. Listen, if you broke enough rules, if you lived under certain conditions of lawlessness long enough, you'd adjust to that new world order, if you will. That's what the sociopath does. And so they're the person who someone who said he was actually a great kid until he got to high school, and then it seems like he got in with the wrong kids. That feels more like the sociopath. Wow. Okay, that's almost like a training that might happen from within the family, within their community, within even the job they get, some cases even within some form of military training.
Have you had sociopaths and psychopaths as clients?
Not really, no. They don't tend to come in for therapy. They don't see any benefit to it. The only time you would tend to see psychopaths or sociopaths come into therapy with any consistency is if they were court ordered. So
I thought you were going to say couples therapy.
No, God, no. It's because they're court ordered. So the judge will make that a condition of release kind of thing, or they're within prisons and jails and getting some treatment in there.
This is so incredibly fascinating to me. If a psychopath goes to jail, he isn't upset about going to jail?
In some ways, it becomes a cost of doing business. But it's also, they're not happy about it. Psychopaths, and to some degree sociopaths, don't think about consequences. That's why they pull really penny ante silly crimes like holding up a liquor store. Basically, I need $150, here's a liquor store, it's open, let's go get the money kind of thing. So it's like they act first and think later, so they often don't plan in terms of consequences. That's why they have a tendency to lie, cheat, steal, and they tend to have very inconsistent work histories, because they're not able to hold a job. Aliases. It's definitely it's more of a griftery kind of a space.
So we've talked in previous videos about how to cope while dating a narcissist. Yeah. If you find yourself dating a sociopath or a psychopath, is there any coping, or you just got to get out?
You're in trouble.
You're in trouble.
That could actually be a very dangerous relationship.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. In fact, even with the narcissistic piece, I've done research and work in the area of domestic violence, or what's also called intimate partner violence. Most people who perpetrate domestic violence are either narcissistic or psychopathic, and so there's a danger there. In other words, they will dispose of you if you get in their way.
I want to share a story with you to get your feedback. This was told to me by a friend, and she said in college she dated a guy for a year, but the guy started to get just a little weird, and they broke up. For the next year, he courted her and did everything she wished he had done the first year. Showed up on time, brought her gifts, blah, blah, blah. They started dating again. He was perfect for a year. They went to Thanksgiving at her family's house. He was perfect to her parents. Just became the perfect man for her because he knew what she wanted. And after a year, on the 1-year anniversary, he broke up with her and said, I've been playing you this whole time because I wanted to crush your heart.
Yep.
I am not actually behaving this way, or this isn't real. I've been faking it for a year just so I can crush you.
Yep.
Would that be
That's more psychopathic.
Psychopath.
That's more psychopathic. Or sociopathic is more likely.
But if they have no empathy, then why would they want to hurt somebody?
Because empathy is a positive emotion, okay? Wanting to hurt someone is a very antagonistic emotion. Wanting to hurt someone at some level might even give them a little pleasure. Power, for sure.
It's interesting to me that someone cannot be empathetic but then want to hurt somebody, because to me you would have to have the empathy in order to even know what it's like to hurt somebody.
There's a difference between empathy and understanding. You can understand because it's like, that's why psychopaths make great salesmen. Because they understand a person. They can read a person and immediately say, I got his vulnerability. I'm going to make him buy a car. Psychopaths are great salesmen. Salesmen of cars, timeshares, all that stuff where they're upselling and almost taking advantage of someone sometimes, making them take on more money and cost of something than they really should. But no, it's that he was able to be superficially charming. Psychopaths and sociopaths and narcissists make great chameleons. They're definitely able to change the situation to get what they want. And psychopaths in particular and sociopaths they view the world as an instrument to fulfill their desires. That's really what they're about, which is what it's awful, because they're going to often discard a partner when they don't have much use for them or expect them to have a very specific role. So they may have married her and she may have had their kids. Now she's going to have to put up with their affairs because they want something else. And too bad if you don't like it. This is the new world order and I will destroy you in court. It's that kind of thing.
That is insane.
Yeah, it's chilling.
I want to leave it right there. I have learned more about sociopaths and psychopaths than I ever thought possible. Make sure you check out as well our discussion about narcissism with Dr. Ramani. Thanks again for being here. In our previous video with Dr. Ramani, we talked about the signs to look out for when dating a narcissist. Now we're going to talk about the 4 different types of narcissists. Dr. Ramani, thanks for being back here with us.
Thanks for having me.
This topic is so fascinating, especially being in Los Angeles, which I feel like might be the narcissistic capital of the world.
You know what I said to someone once? I said, you want to study tortoises? Work in the Galapagos. You want to study narcissism? Live in Los Angeles.
I mean, it is rampant here.
Yes, it is.
I think so, at least.
Yeah.
Before we get into those 4 types, quick question. In your estimation, what percentage of the population is narcissistic?
Yeah, it's a tough one because, again, it's a trait, right? It's not like a disorder where we could actually do an interview or figure it out. It's if I were to hazard a guess, like people who are noticeably narcissistic, we're like, whoa, I would put that number probably to 10 to 15%. Wow. By no means do I think it's a majority. When you think of your own friends, most of them are sane, good, empathic, kind people. But I do think that at 10 to 15%, that's a lot of people. Now, again, I'm sort of pulling that number out of the air. It's just a difficult statistic to get. Not to mention that the measurement skills we have are not very good.
Right. Yeah. But to think, even if you're in a room of 20 people, 1 to 2 of them
easily
actually would be classified as narcissistic.
And it depends on what kind of room. Like, if you're sort of like an entertainment industry effect, I'm going 50%. But if you're, or you're like a lawyer banker meeting or something like that.
A little higher.
But I don't know, if you're at some sort of like a community volunteer meeting, probably 1 to 2 is more
Very good
likely.
point.
Yeah.
So I was shocked to find out that there is not just a blanket term, narcissism or narcissistic. There's actually 4 different categories for this. Let's talk about those.
Yeah, if you look at the research, and this is definitely, as I've gone over the years looking at what's been written, I really do think that 4 primary types have emerged. They're sort of our classical grandiose narcissists. That's sort of like the Chanel suit of narcissism. It's the classic representation of the person who's sort of very egotistical, arrogant, attention-seeking, validation-seeking. Look at me, I'm so great. Don't I have a beautiful house? They don't stop to listen to anybody. Again, your garden variety grandiose narcissist, okay? Far more problematic is the malignant narcissist. This is the person who is all the things the grandiose narcissist is, lacking empathy, entitled and grandiose and big and pompous, but they're also really mean. Oh. They will do really bad things. They almost feel like they're a little bit psychopathic. They often won't even feel that bad, maybe a little bit guilty, but not really.
What do you mean they do bad things?
They will steal money from a company. They will cheat on their partner.
Oh, like really bad things.
Like really bad things. Yeah, no. I'm not saying take more peppermints than they should from.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
No. I'm talking like big ticket bad. And they'll lie, they cheat, they steal. These are your Bernie Madoff types. Like really malignant. They just just sort of, they make great criminals. You know, and again, when we can talk about it at some point, there's a difference between a psychopath and a narcissist. By and large, a narcissist, even a malignant narcissist, will feel a little bad about doing some things, especially feel bad if they've hurt other people in their circle. So if they do bad things, they'll be sorry they hurt their family, but they often won't really care about other victims, that kind of thing. So that's your malignant narcissist. Then there are some other types of narcissism that people don't realize and like, oh, that makes so much more sense. The key one in that one is called covert narcissism. Covert is a word that means secret, really. So a covert narcissist is somebody who is very sort of put upon by the world, but they're still grandiose. So they'll say things like, yeah, like, you know, I'm a really great photographer, but the world never really noticed my greatness. I guess I just came up at the wrong time. And all these cameras you guys use now, it's easy now, but back when I was taking pictures, I could have been one of the great ones.
Is a covert narcissist older?
They can be, but not necessarily.
Okay.
They often feel like life done them wrong. They can be quite passive aggressive. You know, they're that person. They almost feel depressed. And in fact, more than a few of us will initially think the covert narcissist has depression and will treat them for depression. We're like, this is not getting better, and it has been 10 months. Even if they're on meds by now, something should have happened.
So someone who has been classified as a covert narcissist and then treated for depression will not show improvement?
If they're depressed, they'll show some improvement in their depression, but they'll still walk around like, woe is me. Why doesn't anyone see how great I am? I do so many great things for the world, and I guess it wasn't my time. And, you know, and they'll be very vulnerable. If somebody said, they're very hypersensitive to criticism. So if somebody says, yeah, those pictures were good, but we're not going to be able to hang them up in our gallery. What? And they'll throw a tantrum. They'll become really cold. They'll become distant. No, I'm not coming to your gallery opening. My pictures weren't good enough for you. That's the covert narcissist.
Kind of like the, I'm not fired, I quit.
Yes, exactly. They really do feel like the world never got their greatness.
Wow.
That's the covert narcissist.
Yeah, there's a lot of those in Los Angeles.
There's a lot of that. And then that often gets missed as, well, no, they're not even that confident. I'm like, no, listen. They really, it's always like, nobody gets how great I am.
So I know there's a fourth one, but before we go into that, let's dive into that. How would I know, as I'm not a clinical, psychologist, how would I know if my friend or this person needs confidence, needs a boost, or if they're a covert narcissist?
Look at how victim-y they feel. You know, like how much like, no one gets me, or nobody gets how great I am. It's because it's always in a sense of, it's nobody quite gets their excellence. There's sort of an arrogance to them. Versus a person who really is like, nah, I did not do a good job on this pie. I know I could do better. Let me give it another shot. So there's almost like this sense of efficacy, the word that means like, I'm gonna give it a try. I recognize what I did wrong. They often won't take ownership. The covert narcissist will say, I see what my part was in this. I see why it didn't go right. The covert narcissist will blame the world.
They'll very say, clear.
You know, that the world is to blame for why I did not succeed.
All right, what is our fourth type?
The fourth one is a fascinating one. I read an article about this and I was like, you know, rarely do scientific articles get you as excited as I'm running around the university saying, you've got to read this.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
It's called the communal narcissist.
Communal.
The communal narcissist is that person, for example, all over their social media feed is like, off to feed the homeless today, but they're like really well made up, or like, it's Dog Rescue Thursday, and they're always out there trying to save the world. They go to galas and they go to benefits and they write big checks, but they need a lot of recognition. They need a lot of like, can we name this after you? Can we name that after you? And they walk around saying, look at all the good things I do. Like they'll have a website with them holding like children in impoverished regions of the world, but like they're always really well put together and they talk about it a lot. Like, look at my greatness. I'm all about giving back. And that's your communal narcissist, because what you will see is a tremendous lack of empathy for the so-called people they're trying to help, and in essence, sometimes even a grandiosity, like I'm above these things I'm rescuing, helping, give me oh so much recognition, and they seek a lot of validation for all their good works.
I know people watching right now are going, I know that person, I know that person. And if you're not, maybe you are that person. But like, I know that person, I was given some really great advice by somebody out here in Los Angeles, and he said, and it was to a group of people, he said, you need to go volunteer. You need to go do something for somebody and not tell anybody that you did it.
That's it.
Just do it because it's the right thing to do.
Well, I often say do good quietly.
Yeah. Now, did you mention earlier off camera something about stealth narcissism?
Well, the stealth narcissism is almost more of that covert narcissism.
Okay.
Like you don't, and this is where people get confused by it because they'll say, I kind of feel bad for this girl or guy, so I'm sticking it out. I just don't think they have much confidence. I kind of feel bad, but oh my God, every day is woe, it's me.
So that's the interchangeable.
The thing that covert narcissists will do in a relationship, for example, is like, yeah, it must be nice you got that promotion. Like, I'm happy for you, but I've been working at this for years. It must be a lot easier to get ahead in your job.
Wow. Really fascinating. Okay. Now, in our other video, when we were talking about how to spot the signs of a narcissist, you really use the pronouns he, his, him a lot, okay? Are men more likely to be narcissists than women?
They are.
So why is that?
I mean, the statistics have always been very clear on that. It's much more prevalent in men. If I were to take all the narcissists in the world, my guess would be 80-20. Wow. That's changing. That's changing. Sad to say, this is one of those times women are going to break this glass ceiling, and they're catching
the
up.
narcissist glass ceiling.
Yeah, but yeah, it's definitely more men, and part of that is socialization. Men, even as boys, are not taught to talk about their emotions as much, to not be as tuned into that. Empathy, compassion, vulnerability, these things are not valued in boys and they're not valued in men, and those are often the core of character. And so we tell boys, ignore those feelings, toughen up, and so that toughen upness can turn into things like a lack of empathy. And so men are also very measured on their achievements, being a provider, making lots of money, having a big title, having a big house. And so those kinds of drives, which are definitely pushed more for men, more valued in men, those again are very superficial drives. And so as a result, they're going to be more manifested in men, which again can make that greater vulnerability to being more narcissistic. We just tolerate it more. If a woman behaves in a narcissistic way, she's often checked early in the game. Whereas if a boy or a man behaves that way, he's not called out.
Would you even say maybe they're applauded?
Oh, not only are they applauded, they're our CEOs. They're our world leaders. They are our celebrities. They are our athletes. They are our music stars. You better believe it. In fact, if I wrote a book on narcissism, it becomes a how-to guide for how to achieve in the New World Order.
That is a huge, huge statement.
Yeah, and it's true.
And it's true.
It's true.
Wow.
Yeah,
if you wrote a book about narcissism, it would be the how-to guide on how to succeed in the New World Order.
Yes, in business and in wealth accumulation, yes. In your interpersonal life, absolutely not.
Yeah, I want to talk very quickly about the mental health implications of leaning into that narcissism for success. What does that do to somebody's internal mental health?
I don't think you can fake narcissism. I think you can fake it for a minute. I often talked about, in fact, in my second book, I did talk about this concept of acquired narcissism or acquired entitlement. And by that I meant, if you're incredibly wealthy, you're very used to the world running on your schedule. You have a team of assistants, people picking you up in cars, you don't wait in lines. The world really works smoothly for you, if you will. What can happen is then when they go back to normal life, like they're with their friends or people from their past, they may have that very kind of like quick, entitled, do this, do that. And then someone will say, slow down, sister. I am not your assistant. And they'll often be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And they'll be genuinely ashen at that. So I do think that they're not narcissistic per se. They're just sort of used to running through the world in that way. But if they said, oh no, you will do what I said, I am that important, then they're probably narcissistic.
Got it.
So that idea of faking narcissism to get ahead, I don't think most of us can do it. I'll even give you a personal example. I remember way when I finished college, I tried to get into a job in the financial services sector at Wall Street kind of a company. I bombed, forget the first date, the first hour. I'm like, oh, all you guys want to do is make money. They're like, Yeah, I'm like, no, that doesn't. What about their feelings? They're like, we don't talk about that here. So literally, I got the job. It was 9:05 a.m. I realized I'd made a mistake. By noon, I realized they were like, all right, we're just gonna keep you around doing some clerical work. And I started using their computers to apply for a job in psychology. I mean, I could not sell water in the desert. I'm like, let me give you my water. You're thirsty. It's hot, honey. Of course, like that's me, which is why I'm me and not a CEO. Never would be. I don't have what it takes. Most of us don't.
Well, you did find exactly what you were supposed to do.
I love what I do, but it doesn't, again, it doesn't pay well. You choose your place in the world, but unfortunately, we do live in a very materialistic and consumerist society. And as long as that's the case, narcissism is going to win because it's about putting yourself first and not really caring as much about others.
Yeah.
And so those are the people who are always going to get to the head of the line. And so can some people turn it on and off? Probably not. Like if you're narcissistic, it sort of bleeds into other areas of your life. And people say, well, then how do they even have friends? Some people cut them a lot of slack. I think that the great narcissist get away with murder catchphrases, that's just how he is. And that's why they get away with a lot. Not to mention that they can sometimes be very generous when it's going to get them what they need. So they may buy everyone big dinners and take everyone on big vacations. So it creates this illusion that there's lots of people around them. I'm not so sure those people will be around just on the basis of how they treat them. It's all the stuff they're making possible for them. It's like narcissists often have big beach houses. They're there for the waves, not for his personality.
Well said. Excellent. Always fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are you dating an entitled jerk? Well, if you are, you might be dating a narcissist. Here to tell you how to spot the signs of narcissism is Dr. Ramani. Dr. Ramani, thanks for being here to talk to us about dating a narcissist.
My pleasure. Thank you. On my favorite topic.
Why is this your favorite topic?
You know what it is? It's a curiosity to me. I started working with a lot of clients who were, I hate the word victimized, but who were really hurt by these relationships. And I saw a pattern and I thought, wow, we've got to help these people, but in a systematic way. So not only did I really get wedded to helping them, but it all culminated in a book that was meant to help everyone who was struggling with these issues. But it was remarkable to me to look at a narcissistic relationship. In essence, it's like looking into a mirror and nothing's looking back at you. It's terrifying.
Ooh, good metaphor. Should I Stay or Should I Go is your book about narcissism. What defines someone to be a narcissist?
A narcissist is, let's talk about it in terms of sort of the key kinds of pillars, if you will. It's a person who lacks empathy, who's really entitled, meaning that they expect special treatment to be given to them, but nobody else. They're very grandiose. They harbor huge fantasies. They only want to affiliate with people they think are as cool or as interesting as they are. They're very superficial. They're very concerned about their appearance, the appearance of people around them. I always think of them as beautiful facades with not a lot behind them. They don't regulate their emotions very well. They're very prone to throwing tantrums, getting angry very quickly, especially if they don't get their way. And they can be really hypersensitive to criticism. They're willing to dole it out, but they absolutely can't take it. So those are some of the key elements we see in a person who's narcissistic.
And just because someone has one or even maybe two of those doesn't make them a narcissist.
In fact, in my book, I have 30 characteristics I list. So it can go on a ways. I'm just giving you the highlights reel here.
So then how many would I have to be a narcissist?
I would say of that 6 I gave you, I'd expect to see all 6 really to call someone narcissistic. And then the longer list, for example, they tend to be jealous. They engage in something called gaslighting, where they literally doubt your own reality, leaving you feeling like you've gone crazy. They don't tend to be very loyal. They do tend to throw temper tantrums. They get pleasure out of the misery of other people. They're kind of mean.
Let's explain gaslighting a little more. What does that look like?
Gaslighting looks like, literally, like I said, when somebody kind of denies your reality. So you might say something like, I feel really sad that you said that to me. And they'd say something like, you have no right to say that. You have no right to feel that way. Or they'll say something, you'll have an argument with them, and they will have said something terrible to you a couple of days before. And you'll say, listen, when you said, and they'll say, I never said that. And so it's literally like they deny your reality. And when somebody says, I never said that, most normal people tend to question themselves. And so, in fact, I always say one of the ringers that you're in a relationship with a narcissist who's gaslighting you is you start feeling the need to voice record your conversations with them so you can play it back to them. I always say, once you feel like you need voice memos in a relationship, it may be time to get out.
Okay. I have been in a relationship.
A voice memo relationship?
Where I thought, I am going to record our next conversation because you are just not believing that what has been said has been said.
Gaslighting.
Wow, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that person was a narcissist.
No, that can be a part of lots of different
Yes, but it could be a key indicator. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is hard for a lot of people, I feel like, because we do in our society throw around that term all the time. You know, you get mad at somebody and say, well, they're being a narcissist.
Yes,
or they want to have dinner at 8, and you're like, well, they're a narcissist. No, they just want to have dinner at 8, you know.
Right.
So these types of factors really help people narrow it in when they're actually dating a narcissist. I'm really curious on when two narcissists date each other. In your practice, you are a clinical psychologist, you've talked to all these people. What does that relationship look like?
It's basically a psychological cage fight. I mean, honestly.
I shouldn't be laughing because this does affect a lot of people.
It's fascinating because what ends up happening is nobody's empathic. Nobody's listening. It's like watching 2 3-year-olds playing at a table and they're not playing with each other, right? They're kind of each, how do I look? Do you want to do this? No, I want to do this. It's very, they're kind of playing by themselves. Everything actually goes well for a while because they really only care that the other one looks good, so they can deliver on that.
They only care that the other one looks good because it makes them
look good. So it's like this is like the guy's like, I need a hot girlfriend.
Right.
You know, it's that kind of a model of like, I need to look good, but my partner makes me look good. Wow. So it's almost these larger than life kinds of almost too pretty couples that you sometimes make you wonder like, why is everyone looking so good?
But don't we want a partner who makes us look good?
No, we want a partner who makes us feel good. There's a difference.
There's a big difference.
Yeah.
Yes. Amen to that. I get that.
So I think that what ends up happening is that when the first time one person, when there's two narcissists together, frustrates the other, then all hell breaks loose. Okay, so it gets to be when the fireworks go, they go big in these kinds of relationships. I always say, let the narcissists all co-breed, then we can kind of get them out of the normal dating supply. Just don't reproduce.
Just don't reproduce. Okay, so you have these two narcissists that are dating together.
Right.
Have you ever seen a couple, each of them were a narcissist, and they both admitted that they were both narcissists?
Absolutely.
Did those relationships succeed?
No.
No.
No, and I'll tell you what happens is that there's a point at which, I will tell you, there's a number of people I've worked with who've admitted straight up, I'm a narcissist, I know it. And now I can see how it's affecting, usually it'll be kids or family relationships or their intimate relationship. And they'll want to do the work, but then they'll recognize they have an almost childlike want or need for their partner to be something that partner cannot be. And if that other person's also narcissistic, they're never going to change. So it's that's where it all gets stuck. But yeah, I've had plenty of people who are narcissistic admit it straight out and say, how far can we get with this? And
what's the response?
I'm like, by admitting it, we can get a little ways with it, but they'll often acknowledge like, yeah, no, the superficial stuff really matters to me. And as they get older, that's going to be a harder thing to pull. So it really gets, it can get challenging for some of them. People who are narcissistic often feel very empty inside. And that emptiness is a very difficult thing to fill. And even if they meet someone who's not narcissistic and fall in love with them, the problem is that poor person who's not narcissistic will often feel really unheard in that relationship. I've seen it turn a couple of times. It's pretty rare. It's pretty rare.
When you say you've seen it turn, what do you mean?
Like, in other words, that they're able to make a horse race of it. The narcissist stays in therapy. They're chronically encouraged and urged, say, try it this way. Please reflect back their feelings, be present with them, talk to them, but it's effortful for them. Whereas for the rest of us, like, we want to hear from our partners, we're in love with them,
that's right.
We're really rooting for them. This actually takes effort. I've had clients who are narcissistic text me and say, she just said this, what should I say? And I'll say, try this. And they'll do it, and they'll say, oh my God, that worked. And then it's almost like you're giving them a skill and teaching them to practice it. You're teaching them empathy.
Why would somebody be a narcissist? What creates that?
That's a really good question. Narcissists are made, they're not born. And so this is really a byproduct of parenting. This one falls largely on the shoulders of the parents. And listen, I've seen very well-intentioned, good parents wind up with narcissistic kids. Narcissism is really a byproduct of simultaneously overindulging and underindulging a child, which is sort of like, how do you do both? I'll tell you how you do both. You constantly give them credit for just achievements. You make sure that you have the most fabulous sort of family life. Whatever you can afford, you make it that. You focus on their appearance, you focus on their achievements, you focus on, we're gonna have the best vacation, you're gonna be the best player on the soccer team.
Wait, you're saying they should do these things?
No, that's what they do.
Oh,
so
I understand.
Overindulgence of
Overfocusing.
attention on that. But at the same time, they underindulge that child's emotional world. They don't listen to their feelings. They aren't present with them. It's almost as though it seems at those moments they don't care. The kid's like, hey, Mom, let's play a board game. I can't be bothered. But then when that kid's on the soccer field, that mom's out there, number one, cheering. When it's their kid with a trophy, it's snap, 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 Instagram, Instagram, Instagram. And so this kid feels valued only really for those exterior kinds of qualities, and they don't learn to cultivate their inner world. In essence, they don't have a good mirror.
And that leads to a life of
It can lead to a life
challenges.
of that. Yeah, it really can. Like in essence, if neither parent is available. So you may have the picture perfect family, but if neither parent really is on board with the parenting, present, listening, doing the heavy lifting, the kind of boring part of parenting, that's actually how you prevent narcissism. And on top of that, children learn narcissism by watching it. So if the parent is throwing a fit at a flight attendant, or screaming at their teacher, or screaming at the coach, or storming into the restaurant saying, we don't expect to wait for a table, or why should we have to wait in this line? If the child sees enough of that kind of entitled behavior, they're going to learn to model it. Kids do what they see.
That's right. If the parents who are raising these kids and they're growing up to become narcissists, is it likely that those parents are also narcissists?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Parents who might be having some of their own struggles, for example, they may be distracted due to work, financial problems, or they just really weren't that interested in being parents. Parents, frankly, who are depressed or who may be impaired due to substance use. They may not be able to be present in the same way. That's why it is so critical when parents are experiencing mental health issues that they really do get the help that they need, if for no other reason, to be able to give them some of that uptick to be present for their children, or to draw forth what they need to get that help with their kids, because kids do need that consistency and presence. Now, is that to say that if a child comes from a home where they're not attended to, that's not to say that if a child comes from a home where a parent's absent or is not present or is working really long hours, that they're going to be narcissistic? Absolutely not. This is what we tend to, when we sort of back check it, like we take the narcissist and we look at what their history was, you do tend to see a more of a superficial early environment, but there's a lot of people who come from superficial early environments who don't turn out narcissistic.
Right.
So it does come down to one other issue, which is harder to capture, which is something we call a person's constitution. It's just how they come into the world. And even though they're not born with it, it gets shaped by the world. So some kids are a little sweeter than others. They probably pull for a little more sweetness. Their temperament is shaped by the environment. Sweet kids get more smiles, and kind of grumpy, combative kids, they may get a lot more stop that, don't do that, and more grumpy faces at them. So those kinds of forces can interact too.
When you are diagnosing, is that the correct word, somebody with narcissism?
Narcissism is a trait.
Right.
It's not a disorder. In fact, there is a disorder called narcissistic personality disorder. I'm not a fan. And the reason I'm not a fan actually relates to some really interesting work done by a guy called Dr. Alan Francis, who is one of the architects of the personality disorder section of the DSM. And he basically made that point of like, a narcissistic personality disorder is a tough one because we really can't diagnose someone for being a jerk. They themselves are not experiencing any subjective distress. A person with depression, anxiety disorder, alcohol abuse, schizophrenia, phobia, on and on. Those people are experiencing discomfort. The narcissistic personality disorder person is often just sort of like a human locust, just kind of creating a swath of destruction, but not really self-reflecting and saying, I'm not happy. What tends to get those folks into therapy is something's going wrong in their life. Their marriage is falling apart, their kids won't speak to them, or they get called out for something at work.
When you are classifying somebody as a narcissist, do you ask them about their family history and look into that composition? So if you do that, if someone's dating a narcissist and they think, all right, this person might be a narcissist, could they also look into that to get some more insight? Okay.
After a while, you get so deep in. I mean, one of the real tricks of a relationship with a narcissist is most people think, if I just love him more, I'm going to turn him around. It's the whole Beauty and the Beast fantasy, right? He's a grumpy, narcissistic beast, but if I wear a yellow dress and sing a few songs, we're done. He's going to turn into a prince. And that whole fantasy that the narcissist will turn into a prince or a princess is just that. It's a fantasy. But that can keep people in the game for a really long time. They try everything. They lose weight. They change the color of their hair. They keep the house clean. They try to be nice. They try to watch what they want to watch on TV. They try everything. And what they don't realize is if that other person doesn't want to change, which a narcissist doesn't even think they need to change, they're not going to. And so it's a waste of effort. And it's heartbreaking.
That is my next question. Have you ever met someone who has been classified as a narcissist, then be declassified as a narcissist?
I haven't seen any change.
So once you're a narcissist, that's it.
Yeah, you're kind of in a club. And the difficulty is that it's what we call a rubber band theory. Okay? So if you can stretch a rubber band, and it can become quite long, start at this big and you get it this big. But if I let go, that thing's popping back. So the way, the heartbreak of narcissism is that you can actually train this person to be a little bit more empathic, to not be so jerky and not be so entitled and actually listen to other people. Here's the but. As soon as there's some stress in the system, the workday doesn't go the way they want. They didn't get the raise they hoped for. Their friend buys a bigger house than them. Their kids are behaving badly. They're just simply getting older. Like life isn't going the way they want. They blow again. The rubber band goes right back. And so narcissists don't tend to retain that growth, maybe a tiny bit, but usually not enough for anyone to notice. And I think what's hard is, I always say you can teach a narcissist to show up on time. Like, it's really disrespectful to be late, right? So you can always train them to be on time. What you can't train them to do is listen once they get there. That's what gets tricky. So you can give them the kind of appearance that they're present in the relationship, but they still will lack that empathy. These are sort of core issues. It's really difficult to get a turnaround. There is some interesting work done by a brilliant woman named Dr. Elsa Roningstam, who's at Harvard. And she has published in the literature about the kinds of shifts and changes you can attempt and sometimes achieve in a person with narcissism. And she does talk about the idea of the corrective emotional experience. That the narcissist can meet that person who is just so healthy for them that it'll turn that ship around for them. I think that can happen. I don't think it often does.
I mean, I'm worried about even people hearing that, who might be in a relationship with someone who's narcissistic, hear that one thing that is not probable, although it could happen, it's not probable, but they think I am that 1% or whatever the probability is, and then they end up staying in a relationship that is unhealthy for them for the next 15, 20, 25 years.
And what I tell folks is, what you see is what you get. Okay? If you don't like this relationship today, you got two options if you're with a narcissist. Option number one, get out. And it ain't gonna be pretty. Narcissists do not like to be left. They don't mind leaving, but they do not like to be left. If you're married, the divorce is going to be messy, sloppy, expensive. If you've got kids, custody is going to be nightmarish. I mean, you are walking into a war. It'll be awful. Even if it's a regular kind of a breakup. If you live together, there's going to be lots of drama of who's what and who gets to stay where. So it's gonna be ugly, a breakup. Now that's one option. But some people say, I can't leave. My culture, my religion, I financially count on this person, we've got kids, I don't want to be divorced, I actually kind of still love them. Those are all, or her, these are all great reasons. If you stay. You must manage your expectations. Do not expect that this person's going to become huggy, kissy. I just want to listen to you and hear about your feelings, and I'm going to always be sort of the master of equanimity, and I'm a sweetheart, and I love waiting in line at the airport. Not going to happen. And so if you can manage your expectations and get some of those deeper emotional needs of empathy, respect, mutuality met someplace else. I'm not saying get a lover. I mean, cultivate your friendships.
Right.
Focus on your healthy people. I always say to everyone, we put 90% of our energy into our dysfunctional relationships and only give 10% to those good, loving people who have our backs. Flip that.
Yes, absolutely.
So don't give your narcissist your A game. Come up with a handful of topics you can talk about where they won't insult you or put you down. Talk about the weather, talk about the neighbor's mailbox. Oh, look, there's a squirrel. Do you like the chickpeas? Like, kind of keep it tight. What these relationships do to people, which makes it hard to mount a good fight, is people who are in relationships with narcissists ultimately always feel like they're not enough. Because if I was enough, he'd be present. If I was enough, he'd love me. If I was enough, he wouldn't cheat on me, and so on and so forth. This has nothing to do with you. It's that they can't regulate their self-esteem. They're the ones who are insecure, and that's the bottom line. Narcissism is a trait that relates solely to insecurity. These are people who are so insecure they count on the world for validation, desperately in need for validation. That's why they love social media so much. It's like mainlining validation. All I got to do is hang up a picture and somebody likes it. It's like cocaine.
Yeah. It's so great for me to hear that in order to cope with being with a narcissist, that it is not about changing that other person.
No.
And so many people will say, I'm with a narcissist, what can I do to fix him or her? What can I do to change him or her?
Nope.
Don't even try.
No.
You can change all of this, though. You can't change all of yourself.
Yeah.
That's really, really excellent. If somebody is deciding to stay in a relationship with a narcissist and they have all these coping skills, what would be your message of encouragement to them?
My message of encouragement would be cultivate those other relationships, okay? Those friends who are there and present for you. Engage in self-care. Make sure you have those things in your life that fill you with meaning and purpose. That could be work, hobby, children, family, community stuff, but you've got to have your go-to because you're probably not getting it in your intimate relationship. I strongly encourage people, if they can manage it, to get into therapy because that often, especially with a therapist who knows narcissism, to get into that therapeutic relationship, to help them with those really dark nights of the soul and those moments of frustration, and also figure out, is there some broken part of themselves that's being validated by being in this relationship? For example, people who are children of narcissistic parents are often quite a bit more likely, I should say, to choose a narcissistic partner. They spent their lifetimes trying to please their mothers and fathers. Now they choose a partner who they can spend the rest of their lives trying to please. It's the same game. And so it's really to maybe do some of that deconstructing in therapy. And then, as always, the overarching recommendation is manage your expectations. Otherwise, your heart is going to break on a daily basis.